thanks for your intro, Natasha, and really good to see you all here. I always say that in recruitment, we have such a beautiful community, and I always really enjoy being part of these events, and I'm sure each one of you would agree. So my name is Iveta. I am a talent attraction and candidate experience manager at AMS. I started my career in marketing until I moved to recruitment 4 years ago. And one thing I've realized is that even though in recruitment and talent attraction, we are talking about the candidate rather than the customer, actually a lot of the same tactics apply, which I'm sure that you will see throughout my presentation as well. So first of all, to set the expectation, this session is for you if you're running out of reasons to convince your internal stakeholders that TA matters. I know your pain. I know how often it is very hard to actually help a business understand how important TA is beyond just filling in the vacancies. So hopefully the session will give you a few additional points that will help for you to have these conversations. It also is for you if you yourself are running out of reasons to believe that TA actually matters after all these hard battles that you're trying to fight. Hopefully this will reignite your hope. It is also for you if you want to make sure that you do all you can to maximize your TA strategy, and also if you want to understand how to run more effective and efficient TA campaigns, if you're looking for a few additional tips and tricks. So first of all, of course, let's talk about the benefits of talent attraction. A very obvious one and one that is most often talked about is cost saving. And we do know how expensive it is for a business to have a vacancy that is not filled. But cost saving in TA actually goes beyond that. If you do have a well-targeted campaign, if you run effective channel strategy, you can, first of all, save on the media cost. And second, if you're attracting a well-targeted candidate, your team will spend way less time going through all of the candidates that might not be as relevant. Cost saving extends to loyalty and retention. We do know that it's much easier to keep a happy, loyal employee in place rather than train up someone new. Here we're also talking about employee advocacy. There are numerous studies on how much longer employees that come as referral stay with a company. Here we're talking from 20 to 70% and even more. And finally, long-term brand awareness building. One thing we do want to remember is that we are talking about employer brand. And if, for example, if you are running a campaign to attract 10 engineers in London, all of the candidates, all of the audience that might not have become your candidates, might not have applied for a position, you've still been exposed in front of them, right? So another time when they're actually considering about a change in jobs, they will keep your brand in mind. And if you're running a repeated campaign, it might be easier for you to attract them because you have already increased that brand awareness. So I took on this very big task to concise what does good TA consist of into, I think, 6 bullet points. I won't go into too much detail to make sure that you stay after the slide as well. So the good talent attraction consists of, first of all, building trust, building familiarity with your brand, showcasing your value, understanding your audience and what matters to them, creating a smooth candidate experience, and finally, managing your reputation. Now, as I said, marketing is actually very similar to talent attraction. And the very first thing I did preparing for this, as a marketer and probably as a Gen Z as well, is I Googled what does the internet say, how to gain consumers' trust. And I promise I did this after coming up with the previous bullet points, not before. So what you can see here is that actually it is a very similar point that I've just spoken about, which tells me, first of all, like I said, marketing techniques really apply in talent attraction. And second, that by gaining the customer's trust, you actually open up a whole additional helpful items that will help you in talent attraction. So when we're talking about building trust, if there are three things that I want you to take away from this presentation, the very first one is brand advocacy. An authentic story about your company or working for it that is told by an actual employee to a candidate is worth so much more than the same messaging coming from you as a company. I definitely encourage you to make sure that you do have a strategy how to generate UGC, the user generated content. And of course, you do want to make it sure that it's shared on social media. However, it is definitely valuable to ensure that these assets are across your different touch points. For example, the website, talent, pool communications, your own social media profiles. Use your people as brand advocates to spread the word within their networks. It can be that kind of like nice content. It can be just a LinkedIn post that will help you to build the social proof and credibility. And finally, Glassdoor strategy. I think everyone understands how important it is. However, I think most of us are really guilty for not paying it enough attention. We are all really busy and it often becomes a little bit of an afterthought. What I would recommend to do is get a working group together, lay out your goals, break them down to quarterly goals, and just keep each other accountable. Very simple steps, but by doing these little steps, you will already be ahead of a lot of your competition. Now, building familiarity. In marketing, there exists a rule of 7. It has been invented a long time ago, I think in 1940s, before the social media and before our tiny attention spans. What it says is that a person needs to be exposed to your brand 7 times before they start considering purchasing it, right? So in these days, it might take a little bit more than that. However, what this means is that you want to make sure that you are in front of candidates enough times. We know that talent attraction is not just about posting your job on LinkedIn or Indeed anymore, right? So what we want to make sure we do here is post regular content on LinkedIn, any other relevant social media profiles. Keep your career site updated and make sure that there is content that is interesting and engaging to candidates. It could be something about your team. It could be almost testimonial content. It could be user-generated content that you created, that your team has created for social media too. Update employer profiles on job boards, any other relevant sites. Once again, coming back to the consumer marketing, if you are researching some new brand and you go to their social media and you see that the last updates have been made 100 weeks ago, it definitely will impact how you perceive that brand, right? So the very same thing applies in talent attraction too. And once again, social advocacy, that definitely can help you to build the social proof and build familiarity as well. Showcasing your value. So a very first thing I think that made me fall in love with marketing was realizing that it's not just a sales technique, but it's a way to understand what is the audience, what will actually benefit from your product, and what is the messaging that will help them understand that you are that solution that they were looking for. Right? So very similarly, in talent attraction, attracting the candidates, it is about showcasing your value in a way that matters to that candidate. 2 main things we're talking about here is employer value proposition, EVP. I won't go into too much detail because we have a whole session on it later in the afternoon, but it's just a reminder how important it is to develop an employer value proposition. And second, it is a reminder of the power of storytelling. We all know that people love stories, and this is, again, your chance to use your employees to build these stories and bring the values, the culture, the benefits to life. An example here could be, say you're talking about flexible working as your benefit. Get 2 people from perhaps more than 2, but an example could be 2 different people, how they use flexible working in their lives, right? Maybe one person is doing a school run, and it could be them sharing that on social media. versus someone else who's taking 2 hours in the middle of a day to go to the gym to achieve their fitness goals. Once again, it's the same benefit, and you probably wouldn't add to a job ad that you might be able to go and do a school run, but that is how you bring it to life. Ensure that your value proposition is communicated across channels. Obviously, not much of use of your beautiful EVP if it just sits in a PDF or somewhere on a career site. Make sure that it is translated well on your career site, on your social media, any other communications. Do ask yourself, does your recruiters have a right toolkit? Do you have sell sheets? Do you have candidate brochures that translate that employer value proposition to different touchpoints? And finally, be in front of passive talent. And a very high number of candidates that are not currently looking for a new job, they would actually be open to changing jobs for a right opportunity. Of course, that talent is not on Indeed. They're really on LinkedIn. So a way to reach them is through being on the platforms that they use for their leisure time. Be it YouTube, be it news sites, whatever it is. A very useful tool here is programmatic advertising that allows you very easily reach that target audience by the skill side, by the location, on where they actually spend their leisure time while they're not looking for a job. Understanding your audience, I know it's point 4, point 5, but actually it really is a foundation. The way to make your talent attraction more effective is to ensure that you really know who are you targeting. Here, I would recommend to create a talent profile. You can do that within your team for sure. It is a semi-fictitious ideal candidate that helps you understand what is it that you're after and what matters to that person. So then you know what is the messaging that will help you attract them. To create this, so just to super quickly mention what are the characteristics that would go onto it. It could be a location, could be what their values are, what they care about. Where do they look for jobs? What are the media channels that we go onto? Where do they spend the leisure time as well? So if you end up doing paid advertising, you know what are the channels for you to use. To create it, first of all, of course, talk to your actual employees. You will understand why people decided to choose the job. Why do they stay? What do they like about the company? Talk to sources, recruiters to understand what is the candidate feedback. You can also get an insight in what is the candidate that is not quite right for this position, right? You will know who are the people that are rejecting this role. So then you can narrow down your targeting even further. If you're using paid advertising, it is a very valuable data set as well. And once again, from my experience, I think all of us are quite guilty not always maximizing the data that we receive. Paid advertising, if you do different testing, can help you understand what is the messaging that works. If you're looking at the targeting, you can also understand what is a type of audience. Perhaps there's some niche audience that is responding to your ads better. So then you can try perhaps and maximize that audience too. Creating smooth candidate experience. No wonder candidate experience is a part of my title. It's a job title. It's one of my favorite topics. As we all know, you only get to make the first impression once. And probably, sadly for us, quite often candidates take a good experience for granted. Meanwhile, a bad candidate experience can really impact their views on your company. What I would suggest to do is audit your touch points and create a plan of action. At AMS, we're actually developing a candidate experience audit tool, which I'm very excited about. But you can as well do that internally within your own teams, just going through all the different touch points and evaluating to understand what is working quite well, where perhaps you need to step up a tiny little bit. Do you keep in mind that every detail matters? We just had a whole session about the job ads. So even one touch point is so incredibly important that it really is it really is valuable to spend enough time on it. Do remember that application process matters, but we're talking about stages after that. What are the talent communications? Are they timely? And here we're not only talking about ensuring that the invitations to job interviews I send on time. It's also about keeping the candidate informed about the next steps, about any outcomes after interactions that they had with you, and ensuring that you maintain the messaging throughout. Once again, look at EVP, look what's that messaging that you carry out throughout so the candidate doesn't get confused and it sounds like they're still talking to the same company that they initially applied for a job at. Do you remember that unsuccessful candidate that had a very good that had a very good experience might influence a good hire to choose your company? So be fair to everyone. It's not just about making sure that a successful, good candidate has a good experience. It's about making sure that everyone goes through the same process with good communications. And finally, manage your reputation. This really is an outcome of all the points that we've just spoken about before. One thing to remember is if you are not managing your reputation, it will happen organically, it will happen naturally, and it might not be what you actually want it to be. So with this, once again, is your reminder to develop employer value proposition, make sure that you influence the content that you gain through Glassdoor reviews, through social media, by that messaging, by employee advocacy, by all the campaigns that you run and managing your brand. And finally, a little sprinkle of additional tips from me. Ensure that you maximize your efforts. Silver medalist strategy, I definitely recommend looking into. I think it still surprises me how often we abandon all the talent that almost made the mark, almost got the position. That is actually very good talent. And we spend so much time and effort and often media budget to attract them, and then you just kind of abandon them, right? So I definitely recommend looking into silver medalist strategy. I would suggest to look into retargeting strategy to make sure that any audience that has expressed interest in your brand is being engaged with. Any data points that you have, be it data, website analytics, be it your paid advertising campaigns, do look at these data points to understand what is the content that your audience is engaging with, what is perhaps something else that you should build out, what's something that's not working that well. Programmatic advertising, once again, it is a very smart way to reach your audience. I definitely recommend looking into that because you can find a way to target audience by the skill set, by location to very easily reach them. And finally, measure success, document it, and use it to inform your future strategy. Once again, I think quite often we're very guilty just because we're always in this fast pace to fill the roles. We don't really look back at the past successes to learn from them. And that is all from me. Thank you so much. I do think we have some time for Q&A as well.
We do. Thank you very much, Iveta. Thank you.